making a video again. Sorry. Yeah, lots of crap going on. I mean, lots of conversations that are just so bad. And yeah, I'm going to continue with this let's write it down kind of thing so people can't mess it up. And so we can know what we're arguing about in terms of simple concepts. But the real catch is that, you know, it's pretty much impossible because people like Holiday won't pay any attention to what you wrote down. You know, he does this thing, breaks the quotes up. Feeling is value creation, assertion from personal experience. It should be stated that the personal experience is the recognition of the difference in the value states. That's the personal experience. You can't know the value if you don't know. It's the gap that creates the value, just as distance creates time. The gap in the quality of a sensation demonstrates the value reality. And so, well, anyway, so that gets lost in his perversion. So apparently I have to reconfigure these statements in some better order because he wasn't able to recognize, understand as it was stated. I mean, I did describe each one, but yeah, it's just irritating. Anyway, I mean, incredibly irritating. It's just no point. It's always going to be so. So anyway, let's just start here. So we have universe. Elementarily simple. So that's the argument being made. It's a physics argument probably, and to some extent, but it's also a philosophical argument in the sense that logically you can sort of see that everything does tend towards this reductionism thing. It doesn't get more complicated. The bits are less complicated than the thing you're bitting, the thing you're taking apart, and that's sort of the tendency. So if you have an argument to make that so you have some sort of evidence where something gets more complicated as you reduce it, fine, let's hear it. Makes chemistry. Alright, so that's what the universe does. It makes chemistry. And then I guess in here I'm going to, I'm just reading this over, I'm saying, yeah, I could probably use something, a little extra bit thrown in here. I don't have the right keyboard here. Still have to work out these computer issues. Because what I really need to do is say something like compound chemistry, because that's sort of a delineation, is that the chemistry can get more complex over time because of the permutations, the arrangements. It just keeps building stuff on top, and sometimes the house of cards falls over at the 5th level, and sometimes it falls over at the 20th. But there is this idea that the longer you play with it, the more likely it is you're going to get certain levels of complexity. Anyway, so eventually it does this replicating molecule thing. So that's a big plateau moment. But again, the replicating molecule doesn't mean anything without the compound chemistry. So, of having the replicating molecule become an evolving molecule. So it's not just replicating, but it's evolving. And it's doing that through a process where the molecule is becoming a blueprint. So instead of doing the molecule actually replicating, the molecule is is part of a mechanism that evolves the molecule. Pretty much. And so that's, it's very different. I mean, the point is that the chemistry is more than just the molecule. It is the idea of creating the membrane, the filtering that allows the molecule, the DNA molecule, to be split apart, to be augmented. Alright, and so what does it do is it does this, so in here probably I need the word replicating molecule, compound, blah blah blah. Something dealing with the word evolution probably needs to be in here. And what does evolution do? It makes tools to service copying. So if something successfully copies, it will survive. And it needs tools to do that with. Organs, mouth, anus, that kind of thing, digestive system, all those little bits, these little tools to acquire this energy necessary to make this copy, to do this, make more DNA, make more DNA. And obviously, for us, the DNA is a tiny percentage of our body mass. You know, a woman's eggs, a man's sperm, small portion of what we are, the tools protecting it and allowing it to, giving it power to do the replicating, to win the competition. Those tools are much more in substance than the substance, actually. But we're back to the complexity thing again. That's just a permutation argument. Yes, it would be just simple just to keep it simple, stupid, you know, and just have a single cell that replicates. They still exist, and we're just the modifications that can possibly exist, can possibly be constructed, and can possibly be sustained. But there's no necessity to do this, make more tools. It's just inevitable that over time more tools will get made. So anyway, now the big tool is this consciousness thing, sensation and consciousness. So we can play with these words. I would argue that feelings is consciousness. Nothing that's conscious isn't feeling. And yeah, so that's the definition of it. A feeling thing is a conscious thing. Sensation, manifest, is consciousness. So the two words are interchangeable in that sense. If you don't think so, then I don't know what to do with that. Exactly. Do you have to be a thinking thing to be conscious? I mean, I don't know. I would argue not. You just need to have the feeling, the direction, the desire, the manifestation of motivation. Because you're automatically going to have the sense to migrate away from pain and migrate towards not pain. But it is sense. It's not something automatic, it's something understood. And it's understood overtly. That's, you know, Hotliday has a problem with the word intrinsic now. He doesn't seem to understand, even though I made it clear what it means. You know, but yeah, so that's the nature of this mechanism, is to create motivation. And that's only needed in a context where you're going to act on motivation. You have to have an action mechanism, or motivation doesn't mean anything. Say, a motivated plant would be useless because it has no action beyond reflexive parts. There's no way it can, there's no instrumentality to organize a behavior. So the motivation would be of no value. So anyway, we do this. So the motivation is, so there's desire, which establishes goals. Comfort and satisfaction are essentially the object, because uncomfort or discomfort would be the negative state. Unsatisfaction or dissatisfaction would be the negative state. And those conditions would be created by a condition where you're harassed by some condition that makes you unsatisfied, pain, or some other obnoxious sensation. And that this really facilitated through this process is this process of learning through reward and punishment. So the fact that these things have qualitative distinction, that these sensations come in a qualitative state, manifestation, an essence. They have a qualitative essence. That's like intrinsic essence. It's in their very It's in the very nature of the sensation. And it creates a mechanism of reward and punishment for learning. Good logic rewarded, bad logic punished, kind of thing. And that just creates the foundation for this, what really is happening. This little simple phrase is really all that's taking place. The brain schemes a strategy. It models and creates a plan to solve the problem of feelings. And the feelings are a reflection of what the biology establishes as a viable or useful accomplishment, which is the service of the mission of replication. So things conducive to this mission, survival first, are likely going to, things that would be against our survival are likely going to create problem feelings, negative sensations. And that's the way the biology is attempting to take what is a benign world, a universe, one that doesn't have anything, one that can't make survival meaningful in reality, and is making it meaningful in a brain. And it's making it meaningful by associating the necessities of survival and replication with sensations that are conducive to motivating in that direction. So the things anti to the mission are now made to be a problem by creating these problem feelings. So the negative feelings are created. The value is created in the brain through creation of the sensations. The objective of the molecule, so to speak, if it could be called an objective, is just to satisfy the necessity of creating the behavior. But the behavior is being created by creating a mechanism of motivation, of create the problem, make it a problem somehow, make it necessary, make it important, make it vital. These are words associated with something that would have value. Is something important, something vital, something urgent. They're value words. And these are how value is constructed. And our brain does create urgent, vital, substantive, important feelings. That's how it creates value. So in attempting to synthesize a valuable goal, a representation of a valuable goal that has no value intrinsically, the goal of survival has no value intrinsically, fundamentally, as it just sits out there in space. Using my hand, and you don't see it, but it's there, saying intrinsically it has no value. And it's made valuable by associating its anti with these negative sensations, creating real value as it's experienced in a brain. Alright, that's probably enough qualification. So that's gonna, I'm gonna have to obviously write some more sentences. But again, that's the idea of this sentence. Scheming strategies to solve the problem of feelings. The problem doesn't exist. Again, your survival, your not surviving, is not a problem in reality. It's only a problem in your mind, and it's made a problem by creating these horrible feelings that get associated with perception of your demise. And all the feelings we end up feeling have that same character. So as we expand what we associate these negative feelings with, And as our biology constantly harasses us with these feelings, these motivations, based on these goals of the DNA, which aren't direct. They're often indirect. The idea is you want to have sex, that's how it makes you procreate. So it's not that you want to procreate, no, you want to have sex. You eat food because you're hungry, not because you have some thought, I must sustain my body. That kind of thing. So they're very indirect methods to fool us into accomplishing the goal. And for most organisms, that's all that's necessary because they're easy to fool. Obviously, being more complex, we're capable of not being fooled and capable of wearing a condom, for example, or sometimes eating food with more calories because we know we're underweight, or taking vitamins because we know we haven't eaten the proper food, that kind of thing. Okay. So, anyway, so this is going to be the style that I'm going to try to adhere to, is to put this in simple statements and just say, argue these statements, argue these concepts, and if I have to, I'll add better statements and more explicit statements. I just don't want to get more wordy than necessary. It's just a ladder of conceptual recognitions. It's just like this simple thing of just saying, look, I personally have experienced sensation. I can logically deduce that all the other humans are having pretty much the same, they have the same general capacity. So that's I don't think that's I don't think there's any way to escape the necessary logic. I mean, go through this whole thing of explaining evolution, explaining how we got here, time, and how it's real, and that these are real events that led to your existence, and your existence is in this categories of your species and all this other stuff. So I mean, there's a real lineage that can be pointed to. I really don't think I should have to explain that whole lineage to explain how, if I'm having a sensation and the other person's having a sensation, that there's no reason for me to think the problem of my feeling is any more significant than the problem of their feeling, and that there must be resolution or satisfaction gained. I cannot use any logic to find reason to say mine more important than theirs. Now I can argue that I'm a selfish asshole, but I can't do anything other than that. I can't say that intrinsically I'm fundamentally more important that I'm comfortable than they're comfortable. It's not intrinsic. I have to demonstrate why it would be more important. That's just logic. It should be able to say that in a sentence. Fundamental functionality is equal. The necessity of problem resolution is equal. It doesn't matter. The swords of Damocles are the problem. It doesn't matter who they're hanging over. Yeah. Suffering is the problem. It doesn't matter who's experiencing it. So anyway, let us say torture. So suffering is apparently not a sufficient negative state for people to appreciate that it's a problem. So apparently we have to use more extreme language, like torture, for them to perhaps recognize that if they were being tortured, they would realize urgency and importance. I don't So, yeah, there's no point. I haven't finished playing the hostile. I mean, I just, it's so hard to watch his videos because he's such a, I mean, I'm sorry, it's just lying when you're being this deliberately distortive of an argument. You just have to call it a lie. I mean, because I went through it all, And yes, I don't have it in the order that maybe I need to change the order of some of these statements, but I went based on his video basically. But look, I have sampled consciousness. This is, instead of saying personal experience, add the words through sampling consciousness. I've sampled it. I've gained knowledge through the experience. I'm sure that's here somewhere, right? I mean, he's heard me say those words. Through experience, you gain knowledge of it. This is something I know. There is a difference between understanding value and feeling value. So again, understanding conceptually that I have feeling states is different than having the state. Understanding that torture exists is different than being tortured. But the understanding is a reflection of the fact that it's a bad thing, and I understand the badness. I don't need to be experiencing it to understand it. You need to experience it to know what it is, but you don't need to continue to experience it to know what it is. You can retain the knowledge through experience. Okay. Can't be directly observed, must be sampled or experienced to be understood. It's just a fact. And he keeps wanting to imply a prejudice, a bias. There's no bias in personal experience of the raw circumstance. I mean, and it says, look, feeling is value creation. Feelings are value. A brain-produced experience of pure, raw value. Feelings are sensual evaluations. They are evaluations that have created by sensation. And the sensations are positive, relatively speaking, and negative, absolute. I even made the absolute argument later that badness is bad. Find no way to unbad the intrinsic badness of bad sensations. There's no logic you can apply to contrive any possible way that torture could be just not really great good. That it's really fun. Okay, it's just not really good fun. That is ludicrous from personal experience. I don't think there's any possible way you could ever construct any kind of bullshit to convince me that negative sensations are really just weak positive sensations. The truth is the other way around. Positive sensations are just weak negative sensations. Anyway, till next time.